Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome. You know, we live in a world that is just full of noise, right? Everyone has an opinion, everyone has a take, and it can be really challenging to figure out what's actually true. Today, we're going to explore a really powerful passage that offers a guide for exactly that.
So, let's just jump right in with a question that, honestly, we all wrestle with. Is the majority always right? We see it everywhere, this idea that if enough people believe something, it must be true. But is popularity really the best way to measure truth?
Well, the Quran has a pretty direct and, frankly, counterintuitive take on this. It says, flat out, that if you just follow the crowd, you're more likely to be misled away from the right path, not led towards it. That's a huge statement.
So you have to ask, why? Why would the majority be wrong? And the passage gives us the reason right away. It's because most people, it says, aren't operating on solid truth. They're following assumptions, guesswork. They're essentially just making it up as they go along.
And this brings us to this really important Arabic word, zan. It's a fantastic concept. It means speculation, or an opinion that you hold without any real solid proof to back it up. And the passage really sets this up as the complete opposite of knowledge that comes from revelation. It's one or the other.
Okay, so if following the crowd is out, what's the alternative? If we can't trust popular opinion to guide us, then what is the standard for truth? Where are we supposed to turn?
And here is the answer the text provides. It says, ultimately, the knowledge of who is truly on the right path and who isn't, well, that belongs to God alone. It's not something we can figure out with a poll or by counting votes. The ultimate standard lies with the Creator.
Now, this is where the passage gets really brilliant. It takes this big, abstract idea about truth and makes it super practical and easy to understand by using an example from our daily lives, food. The divine instruction is beautifully simple. It says, as a believer, eat from that which has had God's name mentioned over it. Just like that, a simple, everyday act like eating is transformed into a conscious act of faith.
This, of course, introduces the principle of halal. In this specific case, it's about meat from an animal that's been sanctified by remembering God. This small act completely reframes eating. It's no longer just about filling your stomach. It's an act of worship, of gratitude, and of obedience.
And this table just lays out the contrast perfectly. On one hand, you have God's law. It comes from revelation. It's clear, it's based on real knowledge, and it's merciful. But on the other hand, you have rules people just invent. And where do they come from? Human desires. They're often arbitrary, oppressive, and based on that same guesswork, that zan we talked about.
All right, now the passage is about to take a turn. We've been talking about food, but you might be wondering what the bigger picture is. Well, this whole discussion was actually a gateway to a much, much deeper idea, the nature of sin itself. This verse just blows the whole concept wide open. We're told to abandon sin in all its forms. Not just the apparent sins, the actions that other people can see, but also the concealed ones, the thoughts, the intentions, the things hidden in our hearts. It's all seen and it all matters.
And then, just to make sure we get it, the text brings us right back to the food example. But look how the tone has changed. The stakes are way higher now. It doesn't just say to do something, it explicitly says not to eat what hasn't had God's name mentioned on it, and it calls this grave disobedience.
The word used here is fisk. Now, this isn't just a simple mistake or a minor slip-up. Fisk means a serious, willful rebellion. It's consciously choosing to disobey a clear command from God. It's a big deal.
And this is where it all comes together. The passage is about to connect the dots and show us how a seemingly small act of disobedience can actually spiral into the most serious spiritual error there is.
Look at this progression. It's laid out like a dangerous chain reaction. It all starts with whispers and arguments, devils inspiring their allies to dispute God's simple law. Then, if you choose to listen to them and obey their arguments instead of God's command, that's fisk, a grave transgression. But it doesn't even stop there. The final step is that this very act of obedience to someone else's rules over God's rules becomes a form of idolatry or shirk.
So let's break that down. Why is it shirk? Because when you knowingly choose to obey a man-made rule that directly contradicts a clear divine command, you are in essence giving that man-made rule divine authority. You're treating another lawgiver as an equal to God, and that's the very definition of associating partners with him.
So, after all that, what's the core message? It's really simple and incredibly powerful.
The ultimate standard for truth, for right and wrong, isn't found in what's popular or what seems logical to us. It's found in divine revelation, period.
And that really leaves us with a profound question to think about in our own lives. We are constantly surrounded by competing voices, all telling us what to believe and how to live. So the question for all of us is, when it all comes down to it, where do we turn? What is our ultimate source of truth? Something to reflect on. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.